Well, Caleb, I appreciate you reaching out to me, man, and asking me to jump on a call. I think we're talking about price increases and whether you should or whether you shouldn't, or questions that you have for me. And so, why don't we just go ahead and get started and kind of spitball these questions at me, and I'll figure out a way to hopefully answer them and point you in the right direction.
Well, thanks for taking this call, and I appreciate your time. I know you've been crazy busy, so thank you.
Yeah, it's all
So
good.
I spoke with you over email about price increases, potentially doing that. Um, I'm just curious, because of where I want my company to go, kind of based on also where I'm at now, you know, should I raise prices at this time of year, or should I wait, maybe until next year once we've grown quite a bit, to raise prices, right? And I'm asking this because I feel like we're low on cash. We've been low on cash, and I want to have more cash.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to. I created like a diagram that I kind of follow when it comes to raising prices, and I'll get to that in a second. I'll share my screen with you, Caleb. But you mentioned, where do you want to go compared to where you currently are at? Sounds like where you currently are at is a little bit of strapped on cash, and you want to make sure that you have enough cash for next year to grow. So, to help me better understand for context, where do you want your company to be at next year? Where do you forecast your company to end up this year? And if you could have a crystal ball and see into the future within 3 years, what do you think your company is going to look like?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start with where we're at this year. I'm projecting about $300,000 in annual revenue for this year. Um, if we were to do something like Christmas lights, we could potentially hit up to 350,000 in my mind, in revenue. Um,
Mhm.
where I want to be at for this location is anywhere between 500 and 600,000 in annual revenue. And I believe we could hit this next year. We could probably hit 500,000 next year based on our growth this year. We had like, based on my projection, we had about like 100% growth um, compared to last year. Uh,
Where did you end the year last year?
it's like a gross profit was 162,000.
Is that so? You said gross profit. What was like the top line revenue for last year? 162.
No, top line before shop supplies and job supplies, I think it was like 180,000.
180.
So we've
Okay.
close to
So
doubled
y'all
our
lost.
business,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then you want this to go to 500 to 600,000 next year. I think that's doable. For us, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, first full year, we did like 96,000. Second year, we did like 324. And then last year, I think we projected 800,000, but Christmas lights didn't hit. And so I think we ended up like high 600s. And then this year, we're projecting, I think right now we're on pace for like 940. And if we throw Christmas lights in there, or if I just can get hot and heavy on sales, I think we could break a million. So I don't say that to pat myself on the back. I say that 600,000 is really doable.
Yeah.
Obviously just comes down to having the cash. And so within 3 years, Caleb, where do you see your business, like realistically? Not like I wish. Like, where do you honestly see your business within 3 years?
So 3 years. So my goal again next year is anywhere from 5 to 600,000. Okay. And then we take a year just to stack cash. Like we go super profitable. Like the goal is to be profitable and build up a bank account. And then that next year, if we have enough cash, we start up a second location. So that
Got
would
you.
be potentially within 2 years. Um, if not within the 2 years, then within 3 years, I want to open up a second location.
Okay. So, all right. So 300,000 this year. I got it. How many employees do you currently have full time?
3.
3. Is that yourself included?
No, 4 including me.
Okay. And then if you had to put a percentage on how often you are in the field right now, what would you say that would be? How many budget hours a week do you think you're completing?
I would say I usually shoot for about 20 to 25 a
Okay. So
week.
you're like 80% in the field,
Yeah.
20% out of the field, and you're doing all admin stuff on your own?
Not everything. I do the emails, follow-up. So I use Callboss as an answer service.
Okay.
They just take the calls though. They don't do any kind of like the other stuff that I have to do. So I still do like routing, excuse me, responding to emails, uh, getting back to customers because Callboss doesn't do all the fancy stuff. They just take the call. So I have to
Mhm.
reach back out to that customer and resolve things. So I'm still doing a decent portion of that.
How much are you paying Call Boss a month?
So last month it was $2,300.
All right. So I'm gonna save you basically $2,200 a month.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
uh, Probably not. I probably won't go over it too much on this video, but basically, you're just going to use AI to answer your calls. Cost you $60 a month. Don't have to pay per minute. Just got to build it out. You can talk with Will. Him and I are like, got pretty detailed into that conversation, and we both built it out for our company. So our office manager answers all of our phones while she's clocked in, but off hours and weekends, I don't touch calls. It all goes for AI. Basically, just a glorified FAQ page. And then whenever people ask for pricing, it sends them a link to our free estimate form. And then if they want to talk to a human, they can, and it'll get transferred to you. But for $2,300 a month, that's going to, and that's probably just for your peak season. So let's say your peak season's 9 months. That's like $20,000 that you're spending. And if we can save, if we can, if you only spend like 900 instead, yeah, so it's almost $20,000 that you could just stack in cash if you use this instead of. It's going to take you a little bit of time to get it built out, maybe like a weekend, but it's going to be better than paying $2,300 a month. So we can, I'll kind of walk you through. I'll send you a video that I recorded, and you can take a look at that. So
Okay.
we can stack away, let's say 2,200 a month if we switch over, save you some money there. And then, how many trucks do you currently have?
I have 3 trucks.
3 trucks. And the guys, are they solo in the trucks?
So we just lost somebody this past week. So one guy is solo, and then the other truck is a two-man team.
Gotcha. And then, so for next year, you say you're strapped on cash, and since this is a recording, you don't have to say how much you have in your bank, but how much are you forecasting that you will need next year to get to 600,000?
I would think that next year I'd probably need about $50,000 in working capital. I don't know what I need to be able to grow to that number, and that's where I struggle. That's my fault. I don't know how much money I need, but I know that I need more.
Do you know your customer acquisition cost?
I tracked it last month. It was like $44.
Okay, so $44 is customer acquisition cost for those 3 trucks. Do you have enough for 3 solo mowing setups? And
Yes.
so to go to a 2-person crew, and you're just doing push mows,
Yes. That's
and
right.
you have 1 push mow per truck,
That's right. Yep.
and 1 string trimmer per truck.
That's right.
Okay, so to convert those into a 2-person crew, what you're gonna need is you're gonna need 1 extra string trimmer per truck. So let's say they're 300 each. So that puts you at $900. You're gonna need 1 extra push mower per truck. Use commercials,
So
commercial grade
we
mower.
use commercial. Yeah, we use like a Toro commercial push mower.
So what's that, like 2,000 a push mower?
1,800.
Okay. So just for easy math, we'll put that at 2, 4, 6,000. and then you'll need an extra blower per truck. We'll just put say each blower costs 500 for easy math, so it puts us at 1,500.
Mhm.
And so if we take all that, 7,000. Oh, I do
So,
math.
Sam, this is for like a fourth truck?
Nope, you wouldn't buy an extra truck. You would just get enough equipment to have 3 two-person crews. Because that 3 two-person crews, depending on what your hourly rate is at and how much budgeted hours you can get done, we took our location to that 800,000 mark with just 3 trucks.
Really? Wow.
So you don't need to get an extra truck. So, $8,500 will get you the equipment needed to convert all those to two-person crews. Once you go into profit mode, you can kind of stack cash and convert those back over to solos. But if you're gonna be in growth mode, um, I would just focus on maxing out the assets that you currently have and just put 2 people in a truck. There's differentiating opinions on what we just talked about right there, but my opinion is just to max out your assets until you enter, profit mode, and then you can afford to get more trucks and then put solos if you see fit. So $8,500 gets you enough equipment to be able to have 3 two-person crews. And then what is your average annual value per customer, top line revenue per customer? Or I guess in another way to put that, how many customers do you currently service?
203.
203 customers.
Yes.
So that means your average annual value per customer, if you end at 300,000, is $1,477. And so if we want to get to 600,000 next year, each customer gets you 1,477. That means you need 406 customers. You currently have 203. That means you need 203 more. And if it costs you $44 per customer, that means you need to spend just shy of $9,000. So $8,932 is what you need to spend to get an extra 203 customers if your customer acquisition cost is $44. So that
Sure.
puts you at, let me just do this math here. That puts you at
So,
17,000. Go ahead.
so that's the marketing spend, right? Now, how do we factor in like the cost of admin? Let's say I pay someone to do door hangers. Like, how do I factor in that into the marketing
Well, paying
spend?
paying somebody to do door hangers, that should be already baked into your customer acquisition cost. And so, like, let's say one flyer costs you 15 cents and you pay somebody $15 per hour and they go out and they hand, let's say after payroll tax and everything, it ends up being $20 an hour you pay somebody and they hand out 80 flyers per hour. That means in labor, you're paying 25 cents per flyer being handed out and 15 cents per flyer is what it costs you. So now you're actually paying 40 cents per flyer being handed out. And if you have, let's say you do 80 flyers per hour, let me do the math here. So 80 flyers cost you 15 cents. So that's $12 per hour in flyers, $20 per hour in labor. That's $32 in total, total whatever cost being spent per hour handing out door hangers. And these are just rough numbers. The flyers could be way more, could be less. And then let's say that you have worst case scenario, a half a percent of closing rate or a conversion rate. So that means for every 80 that you put out, you get half a customer. So every 160 you put out, you get one customer, right? So that means for every $64 spent, you would get one customer. So now your customer acquisition cost on door hangers is $64. And that's just in this made up example. And then so if you know that your customer acquisition cost is $64, you can just say, well, I need 203 more. And I have to spend $64 per customer instead of 44. So that puts me at 12,000 that I need to spend to get 203 more customers just in customer acquisition costs. Now, admin costs, like you can get like super dialed in if you want, and you can like add a dollar here, $2 here for how much time it actually spends to send out an estimate. But I don't do that. I just kind of go like hard cost, like how much is the flyer cost? How much does it cost me to put out? I don't necessarily like bake in my admin cost into my customer acquisition cost. I just consider that an overhead expense. And when I'm setting up my pricing per year, I make sure that I'm covering my overhead expense.
Okay.
Does that make
Cool.
sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let's stick with that $44 customer acquisition cost. That puts you at $17,432 is what you need to spend to be able to get your 3 trucks converted to a two-person crew and to have, flyers or whatever means that you're doing for customer acquisition cost, or for acquiring customers. You need to spend that much money to get 203 more, and then that should get you to that 600,000 a year mark.
Okay. So that $17,000 on top of my what working capital I need, right? What my working
Sure,
capital
I
is.
mean, you can go below working capital, as well. If you prefer
Mhm.
not to, then that just means you're $2,000 shy of your working capital. You need $17,000. So you need to stash away 19,000 more, you know, this year to be able to get to the 600,000 mark without dipping below your working capital.
So to go back to the equipment, kind of just based on what our properties are like. They're very, very small, like 3,000 square foot properties. Don't see us needing like the extra trimmer and the extra blower. Because we've been doing like two-man teams pretty much this entire year. We don't really need it. There are certain routes that are like, man, it'd be nice if we had like a two-man or sorry, if we had two mowers on a truck, right? Because there's like they got the big backyard and then the big front yard. That's like I think like 1 or 2 days out of the week for certain routes. Now the trimmer and the blower, it wouldn't make sense just based on the size. Um, I mean, probably could cut that out, the blower and the trimmer. Maybe we can add a mower to each truck. So maybe we're looking more at like 15,000.
Yeah, you could. I personally like to have if we have one stand on, one push mower, two trimmers, and two blowers for a two-person crew. And so I would, if I was doing push mowers only, I would 100% have two push mowers in a truck, two trimmers, and two blowers. Because at the end of the day, your how much money you make depends on how well you're utilizing your labor. Since at the end of the day, you're only selling labor. And so if you only have one trimmer, one push mower, one blower, and let's say that you come to an overgrown lawn and that string trimmer gets done and he goes and grabs a blower and he gets done and the mower is still just entering the backyard. Now you have that person sitting around in the truck for an extra 10 minutes. And if you do that multiple lawns a day, that wasted labor adds up. And so if you can give them the equipment necessary to minimize windshield time as much as possible, ultimately what that does at the end of the day is has made your labor more efficient, and it's going to allow you to make more money because you can do more within a set amount of clocked hours.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Now, raising prices, I'll share the screen. So raising prices is a function of two different variables. You're either in other ways to word that, Caleb, is you should only raise your prices for two reasons. You're either at capacity or you're strapped on cash. And so I like to follow this flow chart. So are you at capacity? So my question to you is if we can have each employee get 30 budgeted hours of work done per week and you have 3 employees full time, so that puts us at 30, 60, 90, and you are doing 80% work, so let's say that puts you at 20. So now your weekly capacity is 110 budgeted hours per week. So do you know how many budgeted hours you are currently doing per week?
So it can depend. So we also do fertilizer weed control. That can make it vary. Now, I would say whenever the fertilizer weed control rounds restart, we can be upwards of like 100 to 110 budget hours per week. And then like after
Okay.
the fertilizer rounds are done, we go back down to anywhere from 75 to 85 budgeted hours based on last month.
Okay. So let's say, um, so you're about 20, let's say 25% under capacity. Now you don't want to be like at 100. I like to get it within like 10% is when I would consider myself, at capacity. So you're not at capacity currently, right? So if we're following this flow chart, I would say no. And then I would say, are we strapped for cash? You say yes. I would raise prices on new customers. And then I'd have to ask myself, what's the current close rate? And if do you know your current close rate?
Yes. Current close rate is 25%.
Okay. And what's your hourly rate to the customer again?
70.
Okay, so first, I would figure out why that's at 25%. And I know that you and I have had conversations about that. Um, what does your sales cycle look like? So when a new lead comes in, walk me through what that looks like.
So does it matter if it's over the phone or through like a lead form on the website? Which one?
Let's go with the lead form on a website.
Okay. So if I'm available to take that, let's say like I'm not in the field, I'm not like mowing a lawn, I will hop on, take that lead, I'll input it into Service Autopilot, and I'll either send it to them through email depending on what I'm doing, or if I'm like at my desk like I am right now, I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna call them and then try to sell them on that job.
Okay. And so everybody that you send an email to, do you follow them? Do you follow up with a call later?
I do. I follow up on a customer about 1 to 3 times right now.
Okay.
And then, so
And I
that's a phone
know,
call,
okay.
right? Now, the days that I do this is totally random. There's no like set system to my phone calls. It's like I know I'm going to call a person at least once, and at the most, I'm likely going to call them 3 times. Okay, and it could be random days of the week. It just depends on where I'm at in the week. Um, with emails, we do send emails. I think we do about 5 different emails spread out over like a few days. Um, we used to have text messages, but Service Autopilot just like ruined that. So I'm not
Yeah,
doing
that's
that.
tough because I'm not gonna say 100%. 99% of people are gonna check texts, right? Like I don't check. If I wasn't a business owner, I would never be checking my email. Like my personal email, I couldn't even tell you what's going on in there.
Me
Um,
neither. Yeah.
so I know we've already walked through this, but it's gonna be tough to say raise prices if your close rate is already at 25%. I don't know if you remember like my conversation at the summit last year about having like that sales cycle and how you need to have a dialed in sales system to act as the fulcrum. If you're at $70 per hour and your close rate is at 25%, that tells me it ultimately tells me that the perceived value does not align with the prices that you're sending out to your customers. Um, what is your minimum charge that you're sending out to customers?
So like a minimum, let's say for like weekly mowing, or like
Yep.
biweekly, like okay.
Yeah, give me a
So
biweekly mowing minimum.
biweekly minimum mowing, I think it's very rare that we ever have a minimum mow. It's I think it's like $46.
Hold on. Hold on. I wanna poke that apart. You say it's very rare that you have a minimum mow?
Yeah, because
So
of
what
how
is
our
considered
price. Yeah, good question. So it's because of how we do our pricing sheet, our rate matrix, it's based on every 500 square feet, right?
so
So
what's
the our minimum it says is $39. And the range for our minimum is from 1 square feet to 1,500 square feet. That's like our smallest property. Our minimum for that, that's our minimum. That's $39
weekly,
biweekly.
biweekly? And how long would it take you to mow 1,500 square feet?
It says 0.55 budgeted hours, so a little more than 30 minutes.
So have you tracked the production time on that?
Yeah, it's probably going to be less than that. Now, our biweekly lawn mowing pricing is 50% higher than our weekly. So if we go back to the same thing, 1,500 square feet, the minimum for that on a weekly basis is $26, and then the budget hours for that is 0.37, which is like that's pretty much what how long it's going to take for a weekly.
Okay, I got you. So
We
you're saying
charge a
22
lot
minutes.
more for biweekly because that's biweekly is not our ideal customer. That's not even what most of our customers are. That's not most of their frequency.
All right, let me do some math real quick. So you're charging $26. Okay. All right. What's your average? You say your average property size is 3,000 square feet.
Yeah,
How
that's right.
many how many lawns would you say you have 203 customers? How many lawns would you say is 1,500 square feet?
Ooh, very little. Probably less than 10.
Okay, you have a huge unlock for your business coming up right now. Your minimum charge needs to be for 3,000 square feet and less, not 1,500 square feet and less. Because how many customers would you say are in the range from 0 square feet to 2,999?
It's a lot. Really, like the largest number of clients is between like 2,000 and 4,000. Really, that's why I say the average is three. Um, from that number to 3,000,
Let me ask it a different way,
it's
Caleb. How
like
many customers are over, let's say, 4,000 square feet?
I can't track that number. I don't know.
If
I'd
you had to
probably
just put
say
like
it's a
a
lower.
rough
It's not many. It's probably about 20%, 20 to 30%
or
of our
over
customers are over 3,000. It's very low. It's
or
not
over
many.
3,000? Okay, and you said your minimum for 1,500 square feet weekly is what?
Weekly is 26.
And then what would be the price for a 3,000 square foot property weekly?
So 3,000 to $35.
Okay. That blows my mind that you have a 25% close rate if you're sending a $26 cut to people. Like that doesn't add up to me. I don't know why my brain can't process that. Like why people would say no to that.
This might be wrong, but I believe it's because a lot of our customers or potential customers that are coming to us, especially recently, the past month have been like biweekly customers, right? Like these are people that have known biweekly, they've done biweekly, and they come to us like, oh man, this is way higher than what everybody else is charging because that's not our ideal customer. Our ideal customer is
Yeah.
a weekly mowing customer that uses like fertilizer, weed control, and they use monthly bed maintenance and they do all the extra stuff, right? We charge a lot more for that. Um, again, because that's not what we're looking for. I feel like that is likely what it is. For why last month's number was 25%, why it is currently 25%. That's what I think it is,
Okay. What
potentially.
I would probably do, trying to think here. So 30% of your
So,
customers are go ahead.
so what I'm thinking might help is next year, like marketing to the right people, right? Marketing to the kind of customer that we want, because I think that's what we failed on was we marketed to kind of everybody when we should be marketing to that specific type of customer. We didn't do that, right? Um,
Mhm.
another thing too is just cut out the biweekly pricing altogether. We're just gonna go full
If
weekly.
if you're not a if you're not accepting biweekly customers, yeah, I wouldn't send out pricing.
We are accepting it. I'm saying next year, we're cutting that out, the
So
weekly.
next year you're not going
I
to
think
accept biweekly.
no.
Yeah, then I wouldn't even send it out in the estimates next year. So just be like, hey, we do weekly. Um, like if you want bi-week, oh shoot, because people are gonna want
Well,
bi-weekly. I
because if you think about
personally
it
what
well, Sam, if you think about it, it's like they have one option, right? Like, if they wanna work with us, but they're a biweekly customer, it's like, we only offer weekly. They have to go down that route.
yeah, but if you don't give options, you give ultimatums. And so with somebody, if you only send weekly, it's a yes or a no. Like simple as that. But if you send options, it's like gives them something to chew on. For a customer that would have said no, it gives them an opportunity for you to squeeze in there, earn their business, prove your value. Next year, you got them for weekly.
Yeah.
But I would just kind of have my line items. I don't know how Service Autopilot looks. I know it's clunky with iOS through mobile. Um, but I would have your main line item be weekly and really sell it like why you do weekly, and then have a biweekly be 50% price increase as an optional line item if they choose to forego biweekly, and kind of have like verbiage in there to be like, by clicking this box, I acknowledge that I am declining weekly service. And it almost makes them be like, are you like whenever you're like doing something on the internet and you have to be like, I acknowledge I'm declining this, you kind of makes you question like, wait, should I decline it? Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can like have psychology of selling there, but I think that you need to have a higher threshold for what you consider a minimum lawn. Our minimum is 4,000 square feet, and we service customers that are 1,500 square feet as well. But our minimum as of right now is $54 per cut. So if you're a customer that comes in for biweekly, if you're a customer that comes in and you have a 1,500 square foot lawn, you're getting the same exact price that a 4,000 square foot lawn would get. And we don't get people saying no that often to stuff like that. Like our prices are really high compared to industry standard, and we're at like 42% close rate right now. And um, so I think that you would have a big unlock in terms of cash if you're strapped in cash. The topic of this conversation, though, it's going a little bit long, is should we raise our prices? I think yes, but let's define what we're actually raising. I think you need to raise your minimum threshold. So you don't have to raise your prices on 3,000 square foot weekly customers. But everything that is less than 3,000 square foot, you need to raise your minimum to match that 3,000 square foot threshold. So if it's $35 per week, every customer that is 3,000 square foot and less should be raised to $35 per week.
I agree. I've thought about this. I 100% agree with you.
And the beauty of having minimums is that's where you get a lot of your overhead recovery, because a 1,500 square foot is going to be priced the exact same as a 3,000 square foot property. It's going to take half the amount of time, but you're going to be paid the exact same. And so now if you can fill your schedule with a bunch of minimums, you're going to, instead of only being able to complete 7 budgeted hours in a day, you could technically complete like 10 budgeted hours in a day, because your whole schedule's filled with minimums.
So I've thought about this, and I think where I really want it to be, what I was thinking initially was like 2,000 square feet, like whatever the price is for that should have been the minimum. Just get rid of that. Whatever's below 2,000 square feet, just have that as one price. Was what I was thinking about. But I think it's fair. I think having a minimum probably between like 2,500 and 3,000. I think that's what I should be doing. I totally agree.
Yeah, I would kind of just try to look at your all your customers, see like where the bulk, like if you could put them like on a chart and like you can see where the outliers are at and really see where the cluster is in terms of square foot. And so it's like your average property size, let's say like you're saying is 3,000 square foot. Well, you can have your minimum be like 2,500. And then let's say your minimum is $35 for now for 2,500, and you're increasing $5 per 500 square feet, whatever you're doing, that means technically all of your customers are then going to get a $5 price increase with the new price matrix. If the majority of them are 3,000 and your minimum is 2,500, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So that's what I think you should do. I don't think that you should raise your prices across the board because your close rate is not supporting that.
Mhm.
I think that you just need to have clear definitions of what your minimum is, bring everybody up to speed, but at the same time, understand that you don't need $50,000 to go grow your company to 600,000 next year. And we are at the point in the demand curve where we're about to enter like drought conditions where you don't want to jack your prices up and people be like, well, actually, I don't need weekly services anymore. I actually only need biweekly. And if he's going to charge like make me pay more for weekly services when I don't necessarily need that right now, it might be a bad time to do it. Um,
I
so
agree.
I wouldn't necessarily say that you're as strapped on cash as you think you are. I would just probably raise that minimum threshold for all new customers coming in with leads. And since you're at 25% now, I think your primary focus is as soon as a lead comes in to not wait until you get back to your computer. Go back in your truck and make a call because 25% at your hourly rate and with you and being in growth mode is like SOS send help right now. Like you need to be at like 60+% with your growth stage or with your business mode.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. The thing is like we had the same problem in the springtime when it was like go, 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 go. Our close ratio in March, I believe it was like 35 to 40%. And then it went to like 33% in April, same thing May, and
I
the
think it's
prices
a
haven't
Copilot
changed.
issue, dude. Or, Service Autopilot, because you sent me estimates through Service Autopilot, and it's not like
They
mobile
suck.
friendly on iOS. It's like not at all. And you're not able to send texts. Like if next year your sales we're at 42% with a super high hourly rate, and we don't ever call a customer right away just because we don't need the customers that bad, and I'd rather focus my energy somewhere else rather than like doing sales calls with every lead that comes in. So all we do is send a text message, and you've seen the screenshot of our text message template where the first line is super important, and that alone is going to increase your close rate, whether you change nothing else. Just sending a text message with a mobile friendly interface is going to do wonders for you. And right now, you can't send text messages and it's not mobile friendly. And you're like, that's two strikes that are immediately going to turn people off.
I've been thinking about this. I am going to be doing this year for sure. We're going to move to Copilot. We're going to get AI set up. These are things we are going to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that if we did that, if we can get the texting down, um, make it more mobile, user friendly, I think that's going to help. But I also feel like the other areas where we're lacking is the sales because there isn't like it's not super great in my opinion. Like there's not like a fantastic system. Um, the script needs work, or what or how I say things, and then the other thing is the perceived value. I believe maybe yeah, I believe it's lower than where I need it to be. Um, and I think that comes down to our brand, right? Um,
Yeah.
the trucks. So the trucks they don't all look the same. And that's something we are going to change this year. We're going to wrap all the trucks, have them all look the same, but they don't look the same, right?
I don't think that's going to move the needle as much as you think it is.
Yeah,
Truthfully,
I agree.
Caleb, I want you to think about a company. What's a brand that you buy a lot from?
I would just say like Ozarka water bottle, I guess. I buy a lot of those.
Okay. Okay, so let's imagine that, what's it called? Osarka?
Ozarka?
Ozarka. I'm gonna probably keep saying it wrong, but let's imagine that I'm saying it right. So
Yeah, I was like,
let's say Ozarka. Um,
there you go.
it's a thing you buy online. So you see an ad for Ozarka, aka you see a truck drive by, and you're like, okay, let me go to that website and buy from them. And so you go to the website and let's say your website looks great. I think it does. Is it a lawn care web design website?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go to the website. Website looks great, but you and I both know, and the customers probably don't know this, is that the like CRM is a completely different beast than your actual website, right? So the truck looked great, your uniforms looked great, your website looks great. They're like, I want to buy from this company. I think I have a good read on this company. They go to the free estimate form, they fill it out. Wow, that was a super seamless process. The estimate gets sent to them in their spam folder in their email. And then when they try to open it up, if they even ever check their email, let's say they open it up and it's just like it was like created on like a typewriter in the 80s. You know what I mean? It didn't match anything else they just experienced. And now they're confused, right? There's like maybe this company isn't what I thought they were. And they're making it really hard for me to buy from them because on the mobile app or on the mobile view for Service Autopilot for iOS, you have to like zoom back in and like scroll to like look. And it's like that's just you're making it hard. Not you, Caleb. It's just the softwares you're using is making it hard. And
Yeah.
they had all these good interactions with you, and then right when it matters most, you shit the bed, right? And that's why I think. And so if you can perceive that like when you're going through like the next Facebook ad you see like I'm gonna buy this water bottle, you go through the whole process. Wow, their website looked great. And then you get to the checkout page and then you just can't figure out the checkout page. You're like, maybe I just don't need it that bad anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, I'm on the same page. Yeah. I'm so service. I think Service Autopilot, it's decent. It's not bad for the business that I have. I just wish it was more like customer friendly. Like it's just was you could text them, you could do all these different things with customers. It totally lacks in that area.
I think Service Autopilot was exactly what the industry needed when it entered the industry. Because you had a bunch of lawn care companies that did not use software. They wrote out their invoices on a piece of paper, they handed it to you, they would collect check. That's what the lawn care industry was known as. But technology has evolved so fast and so rapidly where now people are so used to just doing everything on their iPhone, and with one tap of a button on Amazon they can buy something right now. People need that instant gratification because our brains have been or not triggered, but have been rewired to get it now. And so if we don't provide them a software where it's as easy as accept, card on file, booking confirmation sent, people don't have the mental capacity to deal with trying to figure out a website or a software just to get their lawn mowed. They'll just call two Chuck in a truck just to come do it for cheaper than what you are gonna charge. And yeah, they might not speak English or they might not come when they say they're gonna come, but it's just as easy as making that quick call and being like, come over. But we're getting down a rabbit hole. Ultimately, I think your SOS ASAP priority is figuring out your sales system. And then I think you need to raise prices. So, step one, figure out how you're going to make it easier to buy from a customer. Step two, raise prices on all new customers. And by raising prices, raise your minimum threshold. So you can just go in.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how they do it in Service Autopilot, but in Copilot, you can just go in and basically change that minimum threshold, and then that ultimately changes everything else based on square foot on the back end for the price matrix.
So why would we not increase prices on our current customers? Because if we have such a low close ratio on new customers coming in, I mean, if we're trying to raise close ratio, why are we raising prices as well? Why don't we just raise prices on the current customers? Because they've used us for so long, they like us.
Two reasons: you're not at capacity, and it's a bad time of the year to raise prices. And so I would, and your business model is weekly, and you'd be raising prices in a time where weekly is not necessarily needed. So it's with all those like things lined up, you can do it, and you will be able to increase, you know, your cash flow, but you are going to lose more customers than I think you are ready for. Only because it's that weird time of the year for weekly services.
Yeah. So when you say increase prices on new customers coming in, are you just saying increasing that minimum,
Yes.
right? And we're not gonna increase all the prices, we're just gonna raise that minimum. Is that right?
Raise that minimum. So if, let's say your minimum is a 1,500 square foot and you're going to raise that minimum to 2,500 square foot, and that's going to be $35 per week for 2,500 square foot and less. And let's say every 500 square feet over 2,500, I'm going to charge five more dollars. So then effectively, every single new customer coming in is going to have a higher price because you're raising that minimum to 2,500, but you're having that $35 price as your minimum, which is currently set up for 3,000. So that means that every single new customer, depending no matter what square foot their property size is, will have a higher price than your current customers have. And if you want to try, like you have 203 weekly customers, pick 40 of them randomly and try to raise pick pick like a handful of customers that are currently less than the minimum that you're going to have, and raise their prices to minimum, and just use that as a case study and say how many what percentage of customers did I lose here. And if it's like less than 5%, just pull the trigger on the rest of them.
Yeah, that's
But if it's
smart.
like 20%, you don't want to lose like 20% of your customers now.
You spoke about sales process. I know we spoke about, okay, we need to figure out a way to make it easier for the customer to purchase from us. How can I improve my sales process as well? Right? Like, whether that be like with my follow-up system, okay, with emails, right? Calling the customer and following up. How can I make that better as well so I can increase my close ratio?
Ultimately, I think you need to start with the path of least resistance. What I mean by that is you don't want to change everything all at once. You want to make minor changes so that you can actually pinpoint what the real issue is. Because right now, I think the real issue, only because you've sent me an estimate and I've seen how it works, I think the real issue is service autopilot and not making it easy for people to buy. All that's truly what I think it is, and not being able to send to through text message. Now, if you just start with fixing that one thing, give it like a month and compare close rates. If that did not move the needle at all, then that tells you that that wasn't the issue, or tells you it's a completely different time of the year. But let's say it just wasn't the issue. Okay, well now what's the next path of least resistance? Is it the verbiage that I'm sending through text? Is the text too long? Is the email too long? Because people just want instant gratification, right? A lot of times as business owners think that we have to sell on an email. We sell a simple service. We make tall grass short. We don't need to sell the benefits of having shorter grass. We just need to get pricing in front of them and making it easy for them to buy. And so maybe your verbiage is too long. Shorten the verbiage. All we say, first line, new estimate from Troops Mowing. Second line, you can easily view your estimate here. Third line, the link to the estimate. Fourth line, we look forward to working for you soon. Thank you. That's it. And then they click on it and they're like, oh, okay, well, there's my price. There's an accept button. Press it. Oh, card information. Cool. Enter. All right. We're on the schedule.
Dude, yeah, dude, it sounds like I that's what I believe has been the issue as well. I've been on that same exact page. It's like it's cope it I need to move to a different CRM. 100%.
Why don't you just take a weekend and get Copilot, and for every new lead that comes in, send them out through Copilot. And if they click accept, you're gonna probably get linked to Stripe the same way I'd imagine that Service Autopilot does it. Just link it to the exact same Stripe account, and then just schedule them, like, then create a customer on Service Autopilot if that's how you're gonna do your routing. And yet adds a little bit of, like, invoicing complexity because you swap between 2 softwares, but it allows you to see what the true issue is, whether it's, like, the invoice, like, making it easier to buy because Copilot's pretty good at that, or just it allows you to figure it out. Ultimately, what I think you should do, Caleb, is look at 2024 as the year of testing, right? Like, if you change nothing as of right now, you're probably gonna end up with a 300,000 a year company this year, right? That's if you change nothing. Change things, because next year your goal is not to be a good 300,000 year company, it's to be a 600,000 year company. Like, figure out what's broken this year so that next year you don't have to worry about it. You've already fixed it. And I
Man.
don't mean this to sound bad, but if
No,
you're
no,
a
no.
300,000
Yeah.
a year if you're a 300,000 a year company and you make a major change to your operations or to your sales cycle or whatever, and you lose 50% of your customers, I don't think it's going to be that hard to get back up to 300,000 a year. Like, it's just comes down to just hammering marketing and getting back after it. It's better to make a major change at a 300,000 year company than it is at $1 million year company. Like, you want to figure out these things now before you get to that 600,000 a year company.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah. That's a kind of blew my mind there, yeah. Because yeah, if you
Yeah.
try to make a major change at a small level, it's not as bad, but when you do it, yeah, like you said, at 1,000,000, like, it's gonna be way more crazy and difficult and chaos. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause let's say you make
Okay.
a major change and you're at 300,000 your company and you lose half of your business. You've lost 150,000. If you're at a million and you lose half your business, you've lost 500,000. And so it's just like, let's just get those figured out now. You're not going to lose half your business no matter what you do. I'm just using that as an example. But figure out the wrinkles and go grab yourself an iron and start ironing this year. And that way, 600,000 your company next year. You already know your customer acquisition cost. You already know what equipment you need to get. Your goal between now and December 31st is to stack, let's say, $20,000 in excess and use that to grow your company next year. Um, but I think you have enough info to chew on to make those changes. You know who to raise prices on, how to raise those prices, and ultimately what changes you need to make this year. I think.
Yeah, yeah, very good call. Thank you for your time, Sam. You've sold me on moving to Copenhagen officially. I've been wanting to do it, but
Have
I
to,
need to
man.
do it quicker.
Have to, bro. Have to. Yeah, you're not even just Copilot. Like, Jobber was fine for us. We outgrew it, but you just need to make it easy for the customer. And from what I've seen, Service Autopilot does not do it.
It doesn't make it easy for them, and, yeah, you need to find a way to make it easier for your customer to purchase from you. Now my last thing, is w did you lose a bunch of customers when you switched to Copilot from Jobber? Or how what
No.
percent did you lose, do you know?
Oh gosh, dude. I don't think any. I think the hardest part was getting cards back on file. That was the biggest headache. Um, but none. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all how you communicate it to the customer. I'm sure we've lost a few just from, like, we lose customers in every transition period of a business. You lose customers somehow, some way. So whether that's going from winter to spring, you're gonna lose customers. But
Yeah.
whenever a change is made, the way you communicate it is what actually matters. The change doesn't matter to the customers as much as you think it does. It's how you present that change that matters. For example, when we go from biweekly services to winter services around Thanksgiving, we raise our prices, let's just say by 30%. So now the price per service increases by 30%. If you communicate to the customer, hey, Mrs. Jones, we've raised your price per service by 30%, and we're going to come to your property once a month, blah, blah, blah. We're going to service, and you send out that email, you're going to get a lot of Mrs. Jones that cancel. But I'm going to say the exact same thing in a different way. So, hey, Mrs. Jones, due to this time of the year, we don't need to be at your property twice a month. Instead, we are only going to service your property once per month. Now, your price per service is going to be $75 per service plus sales tax. Ultimately, this change is about a $42 savings per month for you. And then just like we look forward to being at your property on this date. So yes, the price per service did increase, and she's going to see that price increase. But we're letting her know that since we're only being there once per month instead of twice per month, here's the exact savings that it's going to give you per month. Nobody's going to cancel on that if you word it differently. So whatever change you make that's going to impact the customer, the most important thing is how you communicate it to the customer. Everything needs to benefit the customer. Whether it benefits the company primarily is the reason why you're doing it. It needs to benefit the customer, and you have to figure out a way to communicate that.